being 40 is like there is so much more conversation now around perimenopause and menopause and that transition. And there hasn't been a whole lot of conversation around that for decades and centuries before. And so it's great that that conversation is coming up. But I do think it, like you said, it kind of has become this blanket statement to just classify a bunch of symptoms. Hey, Kate, thanks so much for coming on the show. I know this is going to be such an amazing episode, and I'm so excited to dive into with you in many different facets. I know we're going to get into so much in terms of hormones and burnout and energy and all the things, but would you go ahead and just like introduce yourself to anybody that's listening?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me again. And I always love spending time with you. My name is Kate Gregory, and I am a women's holistic hormone practitioner. And I help women in their 30s to balance their hormones so that they can regain their energy, so they can feel like themselves again. And that's something I'm really passionate about. I think a lot of women in my age group and all around, 20s, 30s, 40s are we just feel chronically exhausted. Or, we have other hormonal symptoms like crazy irregular periods or PMS. And we're just not showing up as the person we want to, and we don't have energy to spread our magic in the world. And that's what I'm
Mm-hmm.
passionate about.
Yeah. I think, and this is something like I feel so passionate about too, in the sense that I think there's so much misdiagnosis, there's so much misinformation. When we look at like women's health and the women's health studies, it really doesn't have a ton of research back behind it, doesn't have a lot of knowledge behind it. And so, you go to your doctor and you ask for something, like even just me recently, I went to my doctor and I asked her to run some labs and things like that, but they wouldn't run certain ones because it's not indicated, or they wouldn't go this route. And I know that I've drawn labs elsewhere, and these are areas that I've seen of concern. And so I think there is this wrestle that a lot of women have right now when they have symptoms, they have things that are happening, and then they go to their doctor and they're either dismissed, or it's seen as normal, or it's a part of the natural aging process, or just like whatever. I think that women right now are in this place of balancing so many demands that are just wrecking our bodies and our hormones. And then two, getting really dismissed when they go to the doctor. So what are you seeing as kind of like the common trends amongst particularly like women in business, but just women in general when it comes to their hormones and the help that they're seeking from their doctors?
Yeah. And when you were saying, one of the things you said was that it's often dismissed as like, oh, you're just getting older. Like, this is what happens. But what I'm seeing is like women younger and younger being told like you're entering early perimenopause.
Hmm.
And, that like, unfortunately, because a lot of the same symptoms of perimenopause are symptoms of burnout and hormone imbalance, then we're getting a lot of self-diagnosis because maybe you plug all that in and it's like, oh, ChatGPT or Google is going to say, this is what happens to women. It can happen as early as 35. It could happen earlier to you. And you just have to be resigned to the fact that, like, I guess this is my life for the next, several decades.
Hmm.
But the truth is that, that is not always the case. Oftentimes it is reversible. And I really think, to say it's like early perimenopause, I just don't accept that term. Like, I just don't think that that's a thing. I think there is hormone, there's a dropping of certain hormones that could be really benefiting you. And stress, when you brought up business owners, that's something that can start to throw off our periods and, burn out our like minerals and our adrenal patterns and things like that. So that's kind of high level what I see and what I've experienced too.
Yeah. Yeah. Just what I've noticed being 40 is like there is so much more conversation now around perimenopause and menopause and that transition. And there hasn't been a whole lot of conversation around that for decades and centuries before. And so it's great that that conversation is coming up. But I do think it, like you said, it kind of has become this blanket statement to just classify a bunch of symptoms. So for instance, like when I went to my doctor and they ran all these labs, she's like, all of your hormones look normal. It looks like you're not in perimenopause. But prior to that, we just go based off symptoms. So it's just based off symptoms. And so, when we look at that, it's like what you're saying too is like there's so many factors that go into why people may be experiencing some certain symptoms. And like, what are we actually having that conversation to evaluate whether or not this is normal? And I think part of that is the normalization conversation, right?
Yes.
We've normalized so much. We've normalized periods being really painful. We've normalized endometriosis. We've normalized infertility. Like we've normalized so much that are problems, right? Let's not ignore the fact that they're not problems that are existing out there and that people are struggling with them. And that when you're in that state, it is not fun, right? Like I have a friend of mine who had endometriosis and went through years and years and years of infertility struggles. And so I'm not negating that at all and like her lived experience, but I do feel like we're not talking about the root cause of what's happening. We're just looking at the symptoms overall.
Yeah, and when you said at the beginning, like there's not a lot of research for women's health, which is true, but the other part of it, I think, is that if there's not like a specific medication to fix the problem, bunny ears, then the research that is there doesn't feel relevant to doctors,
Mm,
like or to your run of the mill primary care physician who may care about you, who means no ill will to you, but what they've been given is like, here's the tool, here's the hammer to hit every nail of hormone problems, birth control or
mhm.
antidepressant or something like that. And there is a lot of research and there is a lot to know, but it doesn't really trickle down unless it's like used to say, here's a new medication that could solve the problems. And so we're not looking at, well, why are you having this problem at 35? Why are you feeling 20 years older than you are? And a lot of women are like raising their young kids during these years and they're like, I don't have energy to keep up with them. I did not expect motherhood to feel like this, or my 30s, no matter if I'm a mother or not. I didn't expect to feel like this. This was supposed to be like 30, flirty, and thriving, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think, like, especially I know for me, my 30s were my hustle years. Like, those were the years that,
Mhm.
like you said, I was raising young kids. I had 3 kids under 6. I think I had trying to think, my youngest is 9, so I must have had her when I was 31. So, like, really, truly, my 30s were raising kids, having all the medical complications that my husband had, and running seizures, and then working and also trying to build a business and figure out all the things with business. And it was the season that I was getting up early. I was going to bed late. I thankfully at the time was doing Beachbody so I at least was feeding myself well and I was actually exercising and taking care of myself. But even then I look back and I probably was overdoing it. Like I was probably overworking out and I was probably pushing way harder than I needed to be and on little bit of sleep and just in that process, I think the culmination of it and all of it is really what led me to my burnout moments. No, I don't want to call it one moment because I think like burnout happens over and over for people. And I think one, I just like there's this part of me too, like burnout now has been this word that just gets thrown out so often that we aren't looking at it from what does burnout actually mean and what does burnout actually look like and what is actually causing burnout and there is a medical place of burnout and then there's a mental place of burnout and there's everything in between. So I mean like I feel the 30s are that time when I think a lot of women are in that space and season regardless, but I think like you said at the beginning, it's like sometimes we think we just have to buckle through and grin and bear it. And I wish that I had known things different before that. And I also now am looking back at like, how do I help support healing my body from that decade of burning myself out?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think most of us, any listeners who like clicked this episode because they're like, "Oh, I want to know about burnout because that resonates for me." Like we can have regret that, "Oh, I didn't know better," and just like never have that experience, but I kind of think like you have to learn some lessons the hard way.
Yeah.
Like it's relevant because you've been given a signal by your body. And I think that's one of the paradigm shifts that I hope most women, every woman will come away with is a lot of times you get this like diagnosis or Google that you're going through early perimenopause and it feels like my body is betraying me. My body is failing me when I need it most. When in reality, your body is working for you. It's doing so much that it's sending you a message that like this hustle is not sustainable. And in fact, like, sometimes we can have symptoms like gaining weight, even though like we're eating and we're working out and we're like living all these healthy things. But literally, if we fail to slow down, then our body will slow us down. Our body will
Hmm.
slow the thyroid down like intentionally. And you can see this on labs with, the what you were talking about, labs that many doctors won't draw, but like reverse T3, like this is basically a form of hormone that shows up when your body is like, I'm intentionally slowing you down, or like I'm intentionally not
Hmm.
creating the hormones that you need for energy and metabolism and all of that. So that's just one way that your body is just sending you a message. And we can honor that and we can slow down and then we can reap the benefits of it. We don't have
Yeah.
to just say, my body sucks from now on.
Yeah. Tell us a little about your story because I know we kind of like we jumped in. Like Kate's one of my clients. We've worked together for a long time. So I'm like, I know you very well. And we just kind of jumped right on in. But now thinking about it, I'm like, we didn't actually even introduce. So like I would love for you to share like how did you jump into this? Like how I know you know a lot about your own journey or like a lot of what you know is from your own journey and then that's what propelled you into what you're doing. So, share a little bit about you.
Yeah. Thank you. So one unique fact about me is that I was born without a thyroid. So, and I was very lucky to be born like right at the beginning of when hospitals would test for that at birth. Like actually most hospitals weren't even doing that, but I happened to be born in one that did. And so I've been on thyroid medication my entire life. And I didn't know that much about, I basically understood the basics of it, that I needed to take this medication every day and that I had my blood drawn a lot growing up. And just do whatever the doctor says, pay attention if you're feeling brain fog and slow and tired and weight gain and all those things. Like I was just aware of those. Fast forward so many years, I had a baby. That's its own whole story. But after that child, and I had to increase my thyroid medication during that pregnancy, after I was done nursing him, and I was waiting for my period to come back, and it didn't come back, and it didn't come back, and that's when I first started like trying to really understand ovulation and trying to understand my hormones and what could be causing this. And I ended up going to a fertility endocrinologist. And I told her my case. And I was like, this is, I don't have a thyroid. So that might be part of this. Can you help me figure this out? And she just looked at my labs. She drew labs and looked at my labs and she said, well, your thyroid's not slow. And then wanted to put me on like all these medications and procedures to help me try to get pregnant again. She just told me that I wasn't eating enough and whatever, accused me. And she was not interested in like the actual root cause. And she was negligent, in my opinion, now. But I had a bad gut feeling. I was like, I don't think that I need to go through like IVF, to
Mhm.
get pregnant again. And so I started learning, and it just became a passion of mine. I learned that my medication at the time was too high. And that's what stopped my period, because my body was saying, this is not a safe environment for you to get pregnant again. So we're not going to ovulate. Like, that's when I fell in love with my body. Like, thank you, and if I had gone forward and pursued those procedures and medications, like, I probably would have either had a miscarriage, spent thousands and thousands of dollars to have a miscarriage, or that could have impacted the fetus in other ways for the rest of their life. And
Hmm.
it's just like that gave me chills just like when I said that again. But I realized that like so many women were going through similar things, even if they weren't born without a thyroid, they were going through the same rigmarole of going to multiple doctors and just never being given an answer, just like, here's the medication that fixes that. And it mostly just became a passion. Something that's kind of my personality. Like, I just obsess about things. And then I was like, well, I need to share this. And then, eventually filtered into, this is what I want to do for work. I'm going to
Yeah.
pursue certifications so I can take labs and help women in this area.
What is something that in this course and in this journey that, because you have done a lot of training and you've done a lot of learning and you've, built business and then changed how you're building your business and all of these different things. Like, what has been one of the things that has surprised you the most, whether physically, whether it's related to business, whether it's something else?
What has surprised me the most? That's an interesting question. I mean, I'll share my own experience that, like, I was really excited. I was really excited to get my business going. I was having clients, friends or acquaintances of mine reach out and ask for help, and feeling like really solid in my calling of what I was meant to do. And then I was seeking out like mentorship in business because, okay, I'm starting on my own. I don't know what I'm doing. And even though I found some like feminine quote, mom businesses, like, they felt very hustle to me. And I actually noticed that my periods were getting, my cycle was getting longer and more irregular, and my luteal phase was getting shorter, and I was feeling tired, and like my revenue was going up, but I was burning out. And at the same time, like, coaching my clients on how to do less and, be less tied to that like worthiness hustle culture. And that was when the universe like brought me to your book, because I was already aware of like cycle syncing, and I was like, oh, that's what I need in my business. And then I came to your retreat like shortly after. So I guess the surprise is that, like, it really, I don't know, like, it really can apply in so many areas. Like, even if you're going to be like a high achieving woman, quote unquote, like, and do all the things. I'm a mom to 3 kids, and I'm running this business. You still have to rest. You still
Yeah.
have to like be really intentional. And that really, like, sometimes the trade-offs are really worth it. Like,
Yeah.
not having the like insane high revenue is totally worth it to me right now, going through this like healing and shifting period.
Yeah. Something like I've been, and even today I was on a call with somebody and I was saying, like, as somebody who's a very, I used to probably classify myself more type A. It's gone from that. Like, I'm not as a stickler with as much of things anymore. But I was the very much the high achiever, right? The high going after every certification and going after every next level and trying to be at the top and trying to do all the things. And one, I kind of got to a place where I'm like, man, I can't carry all of it. But there is still some part of me that loves doing that. Like, I love being able to go to my kids' school. And, a week or so ago, I like spent all day hosting. I was on the committee for their fun run. And then I love being able to pick them up from school. Sometimes I don't love being able to just drive them all night long, but I love being able to do that. And I love what I do in the NICU. And I love the, all of the facets, like the complexity of my life. Sometimes I look at it, and a friend of mine yesterday, she's like, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you manage it. I was like, well, my calendar is my life. Like if it's not in the calendar, it's probably not happening because I have to. Like I can't mentally hold all of that. I have to have it in a calendar. But I also, on the same token, have created these processes of, like you said, to really create the rest. I know what I need to keep me from that place of being burnt out. And I know that there are going to be seasons like this season right now with my husband being gone is a little bit more intense. And even as much as I still like I'm like, hey kids, I'm going to dance class tonight. You fend for yourself for dinner. They're old enough they can do that. Like I can leave and go make sure I'm taking care of me and making sure that I'm limiting what's on my schedule and what things get put in there and what things am I like really simplifying down. Like I've gotten really, really good at that. And even though I'm still really good at it, like this weekend, my husband came home. He's home this week. It's like the first week he's been home since Thanksgiving. And I went this weekend to a healing, like an energy healing retreat. And I was at the lunch and I was sitting down by myself at the beach. And didn't realize even then, like how much weight I was still carrying. Right? It wasn't until like I could breathe knowing my husband was home with me this week and I wasn't on my own that I didn't realize like how much more I was still carrying. And so I think it's sometimes really just important. And I guess it was like a long way of conversation about it, but how we sometimes don't realize the weight that we're carrying and how much pressure and how much things that we're under. And two, it's in those moments that we need it the most. Like, had I not been taking care of myself along the way, like making sure I was doing some meditation and making sure I was, journaling and making sure I was going to dance class, like even if it's just little bitty things in there, I probably would have totally burnt myself out in the last 6 months in this season. All right, love. If you have not gone over and secured your spot at the Awaken Your Wild Feminine retreat, what are you waiting for? Like, seriously, this retreat is everything. This retreat has left every woman who's come before leaving feeling like it was the most powerful thing that happened to them that year. It is the catalyst that has allowed so many women to book bigger podcasts, to get on more stages, to sell out offers, to be able to transform the way they related with their family and their kids, and these ripples that change literally every part of their life. And this year, we are going even deeper. Rather than in the past where we've really tapped into this presence and embodiment and stilling and slowing and tapping into who you really truly are, this year is an activation year. This is a year where we activate that wealthiest version of you. We activate the most feminine, wild version of you. We activate the most present, the most grounded, the most embodied, the most wild, desire-rich version of you. I guarantee that the version of you that steps in on Monday will no longer be there when she steps out on Friday. On Friday, you will walk away so much more magnetic, so much more unapologetic, so much more clear and crystal clear on who you are, where you're going, and what you're creating. This is not for the faint at heart. This retreat is for those who are really serious about no longer playing small and are ready to manifest their quantum leap in any area of their life this year. So if that's you, make sure that you go over and check out reneefick.com/awaken. Again, there are only a limited number of spots at this retreat. I think I've got a total of 10 and they are filling up so fast. So make sure that you go over there and secure one of those spots. And I think it's the rhythm, it's the balance, it's the understanding, all of those things that make such a huge difference. And I don't think, this is what I think I love partly about the work you do, is that it's not just about your hormones and it's not just about your mental state and it's not just about your physical state. It's not just about your food. Like it's you as a whole person. Like you as a whole person is impacting everything all the time. Like people ask me all the time, like about cycles and irregular cycles. I'm like, dude, it goes all together. If you are all working, you're going to have an irregular cycle and it's going to make it harder for you to actually cycle sync with it. And once we start cycle syncing, like that oftentimes has that ripple back. Like it's just like we are human beings, like with very complex, like overarching dynamic dances between all of the different pieces. I know that was a little tangential, but yeah,
It was all relevant. It
yeah,
was all great.
yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, like, I feel like I became kind of a su not kind of, but I became a subject matter expert in, like, how women's bodies and how ovulation works and all of those things, and then I started having clients come to me, and they were like, "Well, I'm having PMS, and I'm having heavy periods, but the biggest thing is that I'm just so tired from sunup to sundown." Like, I don't feel like sleep ever really lands with me,
Hmm.
and then we just really start talking about their life and what their nervous system state is and what their mental state of urgency, of like constant urgency and rushing is. And like, yes, like it's going to help you when you balance your blood sugar, and it's going to help you when you restore your minerals, and like it's going to help you when you chew your food slower and your gut, improves, like all of these things that I teach. But like the fundamental way of being of always urgent, always rushing, and like never realizing that you're doing that. Never realizing
Hmm.
that like there's like, what am I afraid of? What's going to happen if I put my feet up instead of empty the dishwasher right now?
Hmm.
Because, oh my gosh, I've got a moment of time between this meeting and pick up from school. Like, what's going to happen to me? And like, actually, you have to sit still to
Yeah.
figure that out and to answer that question for yourself of what's the like inner like fear, and how can the like more mature adult, compassionate part of you sit with that and say, that's actually, like you've done enough. You
Hmm.
are enough, in any given day. Like we can talk about resting on your period, and that's like a beautiful, wonderful, essential start. But it's like building pleasure into your life can help counteract the cortisol that's draining you.
Yeah. I
It,
think
it can
that
be really hard.
I was going to say, I think that's one of probably the biggest indicators of like, okay, you come home and you've got a free 20 minutes. What are you doing with with that 20 minutes? Because what you do with that 20 minutes is probably an indicator as to where you are on that spectrum of engaging with rest and being with rest and like things like that. I I will put my hand up. That's like oftentimes, well, I've got to get the load of dishes done or I've got to get something done. Like, how many times am I actually going and sitting on the couch and just reading a book or, engaging in something? And so to use that as a metric of just not to shame in any way, shape, or form, but just to give some insight and awareness of where that hustle mode and that hustle culture is still permeating everything that we do. It's like, are we sitting and even I'll put this, I think that getting on our phones and scrolling social media is also contributing to that sense of hustle culture because when you get on social media, it does not feel restful. Like you don't feel restful. Like even if you're watching funny cat videos and funny dog videos or things that like make you feel good, it's still not restful. And so you get off of there and now you've filled in that gap of time that maybe you could have actually been resting and now it's gone. Like that rest moment is gone. And I find that happening for me a lot. Like the intentionality of having to put my phone away and actually just sitting with it quiet or sitting with nothing or breathing or something of that nature. It takes practice. And I think that that's the thing I've learned is that it's a muscle. It's a muscle that most of us haven't been taught. And now we have things inundating us from every which way, every news, every like whatever. I mean, the amount of emails, the amount of emails I get just the other day, one of my son's coaches was like, "Well, they were asking about something," and I was like, "Well, I looked in the app, whatever," and he's like, "Oh, well, I've sent messages about it." I'm like, "Dude, I'm managing 6 different sports teams. I can't pay attention to every message that's coming in from 6 sports teams, and that's just one, right?" So, like, for me personally, I have 6 sports teams between my 3 kids. 3 different schools, plus my business, plus my job, plus, the DMV and the pets and all of the other
Your
things. Like,
relationship.
yeah, like we are, as human beings, we are carrying so much, and there's so many needs coming at us all of the time. Like, our brains and our nervous systems weren't designed to manage all.
Yeah, and that was where I was going. I was thinking of next, like as soon as you were talking
Mhm.
about like how we fill that 20 minutes, because I feel like a lot of people, it's like, kind of flips between two extremes of like, one is like, I'm frantically cleaning the entire house, trying to multitask, trying to do a million things, or I'm crashed out on the couch.
Mhm.
A lot of women that come to me are like, I can't even take my kids to the park because it wipes me out so much. And, maybe they're going to say, but Kate, I'm sitting on the couch all day. Like, and that didn't help. Like, now I feel guilty or, like that resting,
Yeah.
what they feel like is resting and they feel guilty for isn't helping them. And I want to ask, like, okay, how much are we numbing out on our phones or in freeze? Either we're like frantically doing this or we're in freeze on our phones, or versus what I'm actually suggesting is like something truly pleasurable
Mhm.
that your ancestors would have like maybe recognized 200 years ago, like beadwork or taking a walk without phone, or or playing an instrument, or having a conversation, maybe on the phone, maybe even having an actual conversation on the phone with a friend. Things that are connecting, and social media isn't truly connecting. It feeds some dopamine parts of our brain and it gives us some kind of hit, but we all know how we feel after we log off. And we can have time for that. It's not to shame you for ever doing it, but that's why it's not restful. That's why it's
Mhm.
not the same thing, because we're not really connecting with other people, or we're not connecting with ourselves or our body and doing something that feels good in our body is not this.
Yeah.
If you can't see me, I'm looking at my hands,
Yeah.
looking at my
Yeah.
phone.
Yeah. It's so true. It's like, and I know I've shared before, and I shared with you guys inside uh YCA and stuff, is like talking about, like, I took off of social media and off of my business and everything from Christmas till New Year's this year. And it was magical. It's magical. Like, when we can step away from the chaos for a little bit, like when we can step away from those things. And I know that in our society and on our minds and in this like system that we've been brought up in, it's hard. It's hard to feel like we can put a pause on the spinning wheels, or we can put a pause on all of the things that we have to get done, but they never stop, right? Like, the laundry and the dishes never stop. Business never stops. Like, there's always this moment of, in our minds, I think there's this point where we think when we reach a finish line, then we'll get the reward, or then we'll get the rest, but we don't. And it's actually us ingraining the rest and the pleasure and the joy and all of those things in the midst of the process that helps us actually sustain being able to get there longer. And I know, we've talked about this, like, that my retreat in the past has been very focused on creating a space for that. Like, I've really wanted to have a space for women to be able to come together. I think the first year was just like, I want people to come together and us to like hang out in a fun room. Like, I wanted girlfriends. Like, I wanted to hang out with girlfriends in a room talking about business. And I wanted to bring in some of these wellness practices. And then over the years, it really has evolved where, it really became this, I want a weekend away that is restorative and nourishing, and that is filling your cup and making it so that you feel reinvigorated and recharged to be able to go back into life and to be able to create what you want. Because I think that was another piece too, is I find a lot of women are just caught in the day to day to day and the mundane that we lose access to the CEO mode, right? To be able to make those beautiful decisions, to be able to get clarity on the offers that we're putting out, or to get clear on the strategy that we're creating, because we're so caught in just the cornfield that's in front of us. We're not actually getting above it to actually look at, how am I strategically moving my business forward over the next 10 years? And so, stepping away from your house, getting out of your state, oftentimes, like getting away into a retreat house that even if you came and didn't actually participate in any of the retreat activities and you just spent the whole time by yourself in the corner, I guarantee they'd walk away with so much more because there's something about being outside of your environment that you put that to-do list on hold, right? Like when you come
Yes.
somewhere and it's like somebody's making your food, somebody's taking care of everything, you just get to lounge and relax, that you open yourself up to all these new possibilities. So that's one aspect of the retreat. But this year, I really am tapping into like really awakening and calling forth women in a much bigger way. So I know you've come to the retreat once before. This just once before, right? Yeah. This will be your second year. But I would love to know, kind of like in that vein, how has the retreat done or been like that for you?
Well, I loved it. I loved what you said. Like, even if you didn't participate in anything else in the retreat and you just came, and I want to be like, and just had someone else feed you, just had someone, um,
Yes.
it's like you were saying about the retreat you went on last weekend where like I got there and I was like, I didn't realize how much I was carrying.
Yeah.
And to have someone else prepare like delicious, pleasurable meals for me for, 5 days, I was literally crying because it just felt so nourishing and good. And then we were all laughing because I was crying. And then I was crying more, just like
Yeah.
just that. Okay, like bare minimum, like this experience of being held in a way that I think a lot of women are not, that they just don't have that opportunity every day, even if they have very supportive partners to have. And then, like, one of the other women at the retreat, like, she posted on her stories, like, out of office with like a little panning of the incredible like cabin that we were in. And so I just like copied her and I loved that. I was like, I'm out of office. Like, I'm out of office. Like, how amazing does that feel? So that's just the bare minimum. Like,
Yeah.
you get to go away, you deserve it. Like, and all the rest of the year, like in moments when I was like feeling burnt out or just random moments, maybe something like I pulled out of my desk would remind me of that week. It was like my happy place. It was like my internal happy place of like, oh my gosh, that was so amazing. And I'm really excited. Like, I want to do that again. Um, because I didn't just come and like eat the food. Like, I didn't just do that. We also did like some really powerful breathwork sessions that like helped me realize, what's the right word? Because realize has like a double meaning in this sense, but like realize my power
Hmm.
and realize what was holding me back in different ways. And it also was that like that sisterhood and that like sacred ritual that I was also craving in my life. And so it was just bringing back some things that I was personally really needing. And I know like the women that were there were all so different.
Hmm.
Like, all of us had really different personalities and different businesses and different goals, but we were all getting like what we needed out of what you had prepared. And yeah, ask me another
Yeah.
question. I loved
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. What do you think are some of the tangible things that shifted for you after the retreat?
I know you talk about this a lot, but like permission to not launch as frequently as I, you know, had planned in
Yeah.
January of that year. Like, permission to do my business, have a different strategy than you or than so and so. Something that feels tangible to me was like you kind of introduced me to like human design, and we didn't even like do a lot around that at the retreat, but it made me start looking into like this could be like, it helped me see where my strengths were, which one was like my voice. And like what I've noticed is like when people hear me talk, like they just I'm more magnetic in that way. And I've always been that way. I've always loved to talk. I have a defined throat, according to my human design. And So those are things that I've tried to pursue more of. And when I've
Hmm.
done that, I've been able to have more client calls and more people coming in when I reach out to them personally and not like try to automate so much and use like a voice, someone else's voice. Like my
Yeah.
voice is my power. So
Yeah.
those are a few ways.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, it is amazing when you start to find how you are uniquely different. I think there's so many coaches and mentors and people out there that will highlight different strategies, different tools, different things, and it may all work. It may work for everybody or like any somebody, but it may not be your thing. And I know that's the one thing I've learned so much is there's so many things that it's about honing in on like what works for me and what works for my capacity and what works with my skills and where do I really shine and how do I create a system and a tool and a business structure that really amplifies that and not get focused on like, oh, this person's doing this and this person's doing this and like all the shiny objects and really creating that system and that plan that works for you. I know one of the biggest questions that I get comes around being able to take we already talked about a little bit about this, but like being able to walk away from family and having everything work out, right? Like most like you are going to be moms or women that have other things happening in their life. They've got kids, they've got to figure out who's watching the kids, how they're getting there, all the details, plus investing in the weekend. Like all of those pieces, it can feel very daunting and can feel a little bit much to figure out all those things. So what would you say to somebody in those shoes that's like, I really feel like I want to be there, but whether it's the investment into the retreat, whether it's the time investment, whether it's the coordination, all of those pieces, what would you say?
Would say just like like I think we come up against those thoughts and those fears and you know, those actual situations that we have to solve like every month when if we have an intention to take a sabbatical during our period or just once a month if we don't have a period, I think it's like we have to look inside and say like I can't operate at the scale and in the way that I want to and I can't feel the way that I want to if I don't figure this out. And unfortunately, it takes some, you know, making room, elbowing around to make room like you were doing while your husband was gone and you're like, I'm going to go to a dance class. Like, yes, there's logistics and some of them I'm just going to let go. I didn't
Mhm.
make dinner, but there's food in the house. Like some things I'm going to just let go and not and release control of, and other things like I'm going to find a way and make a way. So this is like whether it applies to someone coming to the retreat or just how they're going to live their life in general, like this isn't a thing that you can skip over. Like
Mhm.
actually taking deep rest and actually putting yourself in that space, that visionary space for your business, like it's never going to happen if you don't make it happen. It's like if you don't put that intention out and decide that it's worth it. And, there's payment options, which I used last year. It was totally worth it to keep paying for that, beyond the retreat. And like, that was another thing that, like, when I would see that payment come up and I was like, I'm really happy I invested in that because otherwise I probably would have like quit my business by now. I probably would have been like, this is hopeless. Like, I either totally sacrificed my health you know, or I just can't do this business. Like I couldn't find a way to make it all work. And so like I would just say like invest in
Yeah.
yourself,
Yeah.
whatever that looks like. And I would love to see more women at the retreat this year.
Yeah.
Honor what's real for you, but also like expand what's possible. Like what could you make work and how can you I think the other thing about that is that, like, it's scary to ask. Like, a lot of women are afraid to ask for what they need or want.
Yeah.
I absolutely related to that. Like, gearing up to, like, talk to my husband about wanting to go to this retreat last year, it felt like it's like I felt like I had to, like, prepare some kind of argument.
You had to have the
And
like speech all put together for him.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's like, why is it like that? Like if he had if there was a conference that was going to like expand his you know, skills in his career, like would I be like, "Oh, I don't know, you know." Yeah, there's more logistics because I am the full-time like caretaker of our children. Yep, yep, but also like he would have to take time off of work to go pursue that. So there's a cost and there is a benefit, and I think like it's just part of like realizing like I shouldn't be afraid to ask for what I need and arrange for what I need, and I kind of have to break out of that I don't know, female it
Yeah.
tends to be female thing.
Yeah.
That's all I'm trying to say.
Totally. I think as women, we do feel that responsibility to like carry everything at home, and that us taking a step away, it's intense. Like I remember the first time I went away for my very first business retreat. It was like, everything in me was felt so guilty, but also it was the thing that launched and changed everything in my business going forward. It's the reason I'm here today. It's the reason I'm hosting retreats, was that one decision. And at the time I didn't see it, but now I see it was like the gateway to changing everything in my business going forward. And it just took, releasing, like you said, releasing a little bit of that control and releasing a little bit of that feeling that we have, and just like taking the leap and jumping into it. So I know we're like getting close to the very end here, and I want to kind of like wrap it up on it with a bow. But if you were to, like, one sentence, describe the experience of coming to the retreat, what would it be?
The retreat felt like a sacred awakening and relief to me.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make it like one sentence.
You're like, I
So
want to keep,
find all the
I,
like
you're like, I want to keep talking, but
I do.
well,
It felt like relief and
yeah,
sacred spiritual, honestly.
yeah, changes so much. Kate, I know people are going to want to come find you and talk with you more. Where can they find you?
So currently I am moving away from Instagram. You could still follow me there at Queen Bee Hormone Health. But if you are a woman that has woken up exhausted, more times than you'd like to, and just feel like your hormones are off, you've got maybe like PMS, irregular cycles, things like that, but especially that fatigue that really makes you crash at 3 p.m. every day. I created a free training, and it's called Stop Waking Up Exhausted. And really what I'm going over is 5 of those reasons that I kind of alluded to that your doctor is usually missing. If you've gone to the doctor to talk about these symptoms, these are 5 things that I find, and the first steps in how to alleviate them and start feeling like yourself again. So I'm going to give you that link to my website and to be able to get that free training, and then you'll be on my newsletter and hear about what I'm up to.
Sounds so good. Yeah, we'll make sure it's all linked up in the show notes and you have access to that. Kate, thank you so much for coming over. This was such an honor and such a pleasure. I know we hang out and talk all the time, so I feel like we may have round robined it a little bit, but that's okay. That's what happens when we just like dive in and we start talking and all the things that we're passionate about. So thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I hope that I meet some of y'all at the retreat this year. I'm
Yeah,
really excited.
beautiful.